you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to our Thursday, September 5th afternoon edition of the Eye Test. I'm Pierre McGuire. No Jimmy Murphy here this afternoon. He's taking care of some personal issues. All good. Jimmy will be back with us tomorrow for our Friday edition of the Eye Test. I would like to celebrate a couple things today. Number one, a solid career for Alex Goligoski. He decided to call it a career today. I remember meeting Alex when he was a player at the University of Minnesota, guy that had a really solid career with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was part of the Stanley Cup winning team in 2009 when they beat Detroit in a Game 7 on the road in old Joe Louis Arena. Not long after, Ray Shero moved him along to the Dallas Stars in a trade that brought James Neal and Matty Niskanen to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Alex played over 1,000 games in the NHL, always a gentleman, really respected by his teammates, and really appropriate that he ended his career as a member of the Minnesota Wild because he's a proud Minnesotan. And I can't say enough good things about him. Alex, congratulations on a phenomenal career. A couple of PTOs signed today. The Ottawa Senators decide to go exploring. They signed Kalen Addison to a PTO, professional tryout agreement. Addison was a second-round pick of the Pittsburgh Penguins before he moved on to Minnesota and then eventually found his way to San Jose. He's only 24 years of age. They got to be hoping in Ottawa that maybe he can bring a little bit of a spice to the back end of Ottawa. He's an undersized defenseman with good skating ability, good puck moving ability. Maybe he can help insulate Tommy Shabbat a little bit. Maybe he can help insulate Jake Sanderson, I should say. So he's signed on in Ottawa. And also digging deep into the well, the Ottawa Senators are Nikolai Kulemin signing a PTO. He's almost 40 years of age. Going to Ottawa. So we'll see how the former Toronto Maple Leaf and New York Islander Nikolai Kulemin can do in Ottawa if he can even get a contract out of them. He's a kid that was a really good junior player and a top KHL player with Magnitogorsk. But I would say that Father Time is probably not on his side in this one, but just some movement around the National Hockey League and some interesting times around the National Hockey League. Still can't get over what happened with the Goudreau family. And I know everybody in hockey is thinking about, obviously John and Matthew and their families. And it's just so hard to digest everything that's taken place around the entire incident. Today, we're going to celebrate somebody that I really respect in hockey, somebody that's been around a real long time. He's a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame on the broadcast side. His name is Chuck Kaiton. And when I was coaching in Hartford, I got a chance to really know Chuck really well. And we spent so much time together during the season, in the off seasons, in the car, going to the airport. We usually rode together. Sometimes, obviously, heading down to the rink. I used to get to the rink real early, but Chuck would sometimes come in early as well. We had some great dinners over the years. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Chuck on today was to just talk about hockey, celebrate the greatness of the game, celebrate some of the stories that we can share with you, talk about the Goudreaus, and try to find a way to heal off of this terrible incident that happened last Friday night. I still can't believe that it took place. There's so much to say about the game. Training camps are about to start. Most rookie camps are starting on Monday, which is really exciting around the National Hockey League. And then you get into the big camps, and then obviously the season's not that far down the road, less than 40 days before the season actually starts. So it's obviously really exciting for everybody. Jimmy and I on Monday will start doing breakdowns of each and every team and each and every division and each and every conference in the National Hockey League. We're going to start out west and work our way east. So each show that we do will be basically dedicated to a team. And then we'll try to have a representative from that team or a member of the media that's covering that team, so that we have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday show, and that'll cover, one area. And then we'll do the same thing the week after, the same thing the week after, and the same thing the week after, just so we can get everybody up to date going into the season, because I know there are a lot of fantasy drafts coming up, and people want to know exactly what's going on with a lot of these teams. I've been asked a lot about the Draisaitl contract and the ramifications it's going to have for the Edmonton Oilers. And I think obviously this year there's nothing to worry about because that contract kicks in a year from now. But down the road, it's going to have effect. It's going to have a major effect on what happens with Bouchard. It's going to have a major effect on what happens with Connor McDavid. It's going to, and look, if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, don't be nervous. Connor McDavid's not going anywhere unless he decides not to stay there. The Edmonton Oilers would move heaven and earth to get him signed and keep him. And you can understand why. I mean, he is a marquee player, not just for the National Hockey League, but for the hockey world in general. He's just a spectacular talent. And they'll do everything to get him done. So, you know, for the Draisaitl deal, I knew Stan Bowman somehow, some way would get it done. They did get it done. The numbers are going to be hard to work, especially if the cap doesn't go up over time. They got to be hoping that it will, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously a talented player. I worry about their depth in defense. I worry about where they are in goal. I worry about their prospect pool in Edmonton, but the foundation is there. The foundation's there. Nugent Hopkins is a vastly underrated player. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Evander Kane and his injury situations and the potential for surgery. But you know, so much to like there. So much experience gained by going to the Stanley Cup final last year, which I thought was great. So, you know, again, we'll see how it plays out. In terms of the East, there's been some movement with a lot of different teams. A lot of pressure is going to be on Detroit. A lot of pressure is going to be on Ottawa. A lot of pressure is going to be on Buffalo. I think there's going to be a lot of built-up pressure in Philadelphia. They had a tremendous season last year when you consider what most of the pundits were saying. And now can John Tortorella and Danny Briere and Keith Jones, the management team and the coaching staff, build on a lot of success that was made last year in Philadelphia. And if they can, that'd be great. If they can't, then how far behind the rest of the pack will they fall? And that's going to be something that a lot of people will be monitoring as we go along here. I'm looking forward to our chat with Chuck today. And when my discussion with Chuck is over, we will go right to questions and we will make some things happen in terms of interplay with you and our great, you know, followers. We're so appreciative of everything that you guys do for us and celebrate the great game of hockey. Last week, Jimmy and I were talking about on a Wednesday going over to Belfast, Ireland on U.S. Thanksgiving week to celebrate the Friendship Four. And the Friendship Four is an amazing event. If you haven't heard of it, it involves U.S. college hockey teams. They go over, they spend a week in Belfast. They play in the magnificent arena in downtown Belfast. The rink is sold out. There's so much energy there. And I can't wait to head over there. I'll be attending an event at the Massachusetts State House on September the 24th to actually celebrate the Friendship Four. And this year, the representatives from the U.S. side of things are Harvard University, led by Teddy Donato, the coach and former NHL player. Boston University, led by Stanley Cup winner and tremendous all-around good guy in Jay Pandolfo. Merrimack is going to represent the Boston area in Hockey East as well. Scott Borick is the coach from Merrimack. And then in his final season as the head coach at Notre Dame, Jeff Jackson will be taking his Fighting Irish overseas to play in the Friendship Four. So it's an outstanding tournament, some great teams. I can't wait to watch Boston University play this year, by the way. And I know we're going to get back to the NHL when Chuck comes on. But if you think about it, you know, they lost Lane Hudson to the Montreal Canadiens. They lost Cade Weber to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They lost Macklin Celebrini to the San Jose Sharks. And they lost Luke Tuck to the Montreal Canadiens. It'll be fascinating to see what the Boston University Terrier roster looks like and how it really comes together this season. Boston University is one story. How about Boston College? You know, you lose Will Smith to San Jose and you lose Cutter Gauthier to Anaheim. And there's just so much pressure on all these young kids going into Boston College. And, you know, Greg Brown has done a masterful job there at Boston College since taking over from the Hockey Hall of Fame great Jerry York. But the thing that blows me away is they just keep finding great player after great player after great player. And I couldn't say enough good things about what Boston College has done with their recruiting, and the same for BU. And I got to tell you, the same for Northeastern University, the same for the University of Maine. The growth of Hockey East and the development of their programs has been phenomenal. So it's going to be an exciting time to watch them. I think in the ECAC, Cornell is going to be a great story. I really believe that, Mike Schaefer in his last year as a head coach at Cornell is going to do some great things there. There's been some roster upheaval too around the league. Colgate's lost some really good players, and Colgate used to be a thorn in the side of Cornell. Now I don't know if Cornell has to worry about that thorn as much, but it's always an amazingly passionate rivalry. The same thing can be said about what's going on at Harvard with Coach Donato and his group. They've brought in some good young players. They've had some young guys that they were trying to grow into big roles last year. A big name to watch at Harvard is Ryan Healy, a draft pick of the Minnesota Wild. He's a mobile, skillful, power play-oriented type defenseman. And this is going to be a big year for him. This will be his third year in college hockey. So it's obviously a huge year for him. And I know they're expecting great things from Ryan Healy at Harvard this year. Another guy to watch for at Harvard is Ben McDonald. His father was a Hobey Baker winner at Harvard University, and Lane McDonald. And Ben had a tremendous summer. I worked with him a lot this summer, and I know they're expecting, a 17 to 22 goal season from Ben at Harvard. And if he can do better than that, that'll make the Seattle Kraken really happy. I had a long talk with Ronnie Francis about Ben this summer, and I know that they're really excited about his development in his freshman year, and they want to see from freshman to sophomore year how much he evolves. So there's so many good storylines. I haven't even talked about Quinnipiac yet, and the job that has gone on there for so long. Ren Pecknell and his staff have been phenomenal, and I know they've had a little bit of a roster turnover as well, losing some guys to National Hockey League situations. And obviously losing some guys in the portal that I'm not sure they were counting on losing. So some not turmoil, but some turnover at Quinnipiac. So that's going to be something that merits some serious watching, because Quinnipiac was probably a shot away or maybe a couple minutes away from knocking Boston College out of the last year's NCAA tournament. And I got to tell you, the NCAA hockey has never been better. I've been in NCAA hockey since 1979. I was a player in 79, and I coached after I was done playing at the pro level, and I coached for 6 years. And I've been watching it, like I said, since 79, and I'm blown away by how much better the coaching is, how much better the players are, how good all the programs have become. And the future for not just college hockey on the men's and the women's side being so great, but the opportunities have never been better for college players. And I know some people at the college level are really concerned about the potential of major junior players coming in and joining college hockey. I wouldn't be worried about that. In fact, I would relish that if I were a university or a college. And the reason being is, most players play major junior starting at 16, and they're either signed to pro contracts by the time they're 18 or 19, or they age out at 20. There are not a lot of players that can play college hockey till they're 20 or 21. That's just the way the game has gone. So I actually think it might be beneficial to U.S. college hockey to have those players at one point slide into playing, going from major junior to playing college hockey. But we're waiting on Chuck Kaiton, the famous voice, longtime voice of the Hartford Whalers and the Carolina Hurricanes. And I know Shane, our producer, is patiently waiting for him. And Shane, if he doesn't get in touch with us soon, just reach out to him to remind him. But I don't want to bore the people with too much talk about college hockey. We can sneak back into the pros and the NHL and talk about different things. And if there's some questions out there, Shane, with people that want to get in touch with me, I'm more than happy to take some questions before Chuck comes on. And the forum is yours, folks. If you're at home watching this right now and you feel like you want to, ask a question about college, ask a question about major junior, ask a question about the Draisaitl contract, whatever direction you want to go. It's our pleasure. We are so proud to have the eye test out and about, but to have you participating actively with us all the time. I'm really encouraged. Oh, here's a question for you. Don't really get tired of NCAA hockey talk. Laugh out loud. Well, Jeff, you know what? I don't get really tired of it. I think there's a lot of good stuff to it. I just love talking about hockey. And I think the one thing about college hockey in particular is the growth. It's just improved so much. And we've got more and more teams. And not just, like I said, not just on the men's side, but on the women's side too. I had the honor and the privilege of calling last year's ECAC Final Four that Colgate won. And I would tell you that the caliber of play in that tournament was outstanding. And if you go out west, again, I can't say enough good things about what's gone on at Wisconsin under Mark Johnson, what's gone on at Minnesota, what's gone on at Ohio State. Hockey out west is just continuing to grow. Well, let's get to see coming up what's going to happen with the University of Michigan. They've added women's hockey now, so I can't wait to see that. So, yeah, I don't get tired of talking college hockey very much. But getting back to the NHL, I think what we're looking at, too, this year in the NHL is, Florida's already been to 2 final in 2 years. I don't know if it's easy to go back for a third. And you got to remember, they lost some players as well, whether it's through unrestricted free agency or just people moving on. And stuff happens. It's just, it's the way of the world, especially in the National Hockey League. Rosters are fluid, and you got to hope that they're young guys filtering through a system that can come in and replace. But, for the Florida Panthers, it's not going to be easy. I'm really excited to see what goes on in Vegas this season. Really excited to see what goes on in Colorado this season. And I'm really pumped up to see what goes on in a place that I think is really growing it the right way, and that's Anaheim. I think Pat Verbeek and his folks have done a fantastic job there. Greg Cronin's been a tremendous coach there. They've got, I think one of the better young forwards in the league in Leo Carlson. Mason McTavish is an outstanding player. I expect him to really elevate again offensively this year. I know it wasn't a great year for Trevor Zegras last year. A lot of it was due to injury and just a lot of rumors around him being moved out of there. Those rumors haven't gone away, but Trevor hasn't been moved out of Anaheim yet either. So it's up to him to really step up and deliver and have a great year. I think the LA Kings are doing some really good things, and it should be a constructive year for them. And Utah has gone on a spending spree and a trade acquisition spree, and they've made their roster a lot better. I think General Manager Armstrong's done a good job there. And I got to tell you, Andre Tourigny is a tremendous coach. He really is. And I think that they're one of those teams that if you don't pay attention enough to them, you could be in trouble. You could be in trouble as an organization. You really could, because I think they're going to play the role of spoiler in a real good way, in a real dangerous way. So, Shane, I don't know if we have more questions or not, but I'm more than willing to take them. I haven't heard anything from Chuck Kaiton yet. So, here we go. Marvin Matthews. I have to admit, I knew nothing about Brock Faber last year, and he went on to have a brilliant rookie year. Is there another under-the-radar rookie for 24-25? Well, Marvin, I'll tell you what. We were talking about Brock Faber for a lot of time last year. I watched them play at the University of Minnesota. Spent a lot of time because I was watching a couple of their free agents or potential unrestricted free agents, and I thought that when I watched Minnesota play in Faber's season, I thought that he was as good or better than any defenseman that I saw in college hockey that year. Under the radar, I think Lane Hudson's going to be phenomenal, really, really good for the Montreal Canadiens. He's going to put up a huge amount of points. I don't think Macklin Celebrini's under the radar. I think he's going to do fantastically well. Will Smith might be a tinge under the radar, but I think he's going to have a magnificent season in San Jose as well. The problem for those guys is they're young guys. They're going to be expected to play in first and second line roles. That's not an easy thing to do, but those would be some young players that I would expect are going to do extremely well this coming college hockey season. But the guy that I'm really going to be watching a lot is Lane Hudson, because if he can, get that Montreal Canadiens power play going, Marvin, I think that you're going to see him stockpile a bunch of points, and I think that would force the Canadiens into playing some pretty intense games down the stretch. And that's something that I know Jeff Gordon really wants as a president of hockey operation, what Ken Hughes wants as a general manager, and what Marty St. Louis wants as a coach. So if he can develop that power play, and I think he can, he'll be one of the guys that'll be right near the top of the food chain to be a Rookie of the Year candidate. All right, Shane, what else do we have there? Bill Van Vagel. When do PTOs get announced? What players might be attending camps in this manner? Any surprises who didn't get signed otherwise? So people are starting to sign PTOs right now. I talked about it off the top. In Ottawa, they got 2 PTOs signed today. Kalen Addison signed. He's a young player out of the Western Hockey League. Was drafted by Pittsburgh, moved on to Minnesota, and then finished up in San Jose. Ottawa has decided to give him an opportunity as a slick puck-moving defenseman at 24 years of age. And they also signed former Toronto Maple Leaf and New York Islander Nikolai Kulemin. I think that's an interesting one just because of his age. So we'll see how that plays out. The Boston Bruins have been aggressive in the PTO market. So we'll see how that plays out for them. Last year, they signed Danton Heinen, a former Bruin, to a PTO, and he eventually made their roster and had a really good year. So the PTO market is open, it's alive, it's well, and there are some players that I'm surprised haven't gotten contracts, but will get PTOs before it's said and done. Hey, Bill, thanks again for the question. Will the NHL compensate or make any allowances such as cap exemption to sign or trade for a player to Columbus as a result? So as far as I know, they don't have to make any adjustment. Johnny Gaudreau's contract comes off the books, which is obviously really sad. But that's the situation as I understand it. It's so unfortunate. But yeah, Columbus should have cap relief on his money. Jeremy Martin, do you have any idea of a timeline on when or if CHL players will eventually have eligibility for the NCAA? It's gaining a lot of steam, Jeremy. So I'm going to say within the next year or two. I know that I talked to a lot of college coaches, and they're actively setting up situations. I saw that Providence, and I know the young lady's last name is Feaster. Her father was a former general manager and Stanley Cup winning general manager in Tampa, and also worked with the Calgary Flames. But she's been promoted to general manager of hockey operations at Providence College. So that probably speaks to somebody, and I credit Providence for having the foresight to do this. I think that's where you're going to go. And I think for them to have announced that today tells me that they think that major junior players eventually are going to be sooner rather than later eligible to play college hockey. And because of that, I would like to see more colleges just find a director of hockey operations that really wouldn't be involved in the coaching part of it, but would be very involved in the finding and the development of players, especially major junior players. But thank you for that question, Jeremy. That's really appropriate. You know, Shane, it's great to see that Chuck Kaiton finally came on. Chuck, how you doing?
Good. I'm doing well, Pierre. Yeah, I was waiting to hear from you. I don't know. Somebody sent it to my text instead of my email, but it's good to be with you.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Good to be with you. Charles, how's your summer been?
Excellent. It's been a really eventful summer. Just a lot of golf, a little bit of travel. The way I met my wife was 50 years ago at a wedding, and we went to that couple's 50th wedding anniversary in Saline, Michigan. So that was fun. That means we're coming up on 50 next year, which I don't know if that's fun, but makes us feel a little bit older, not wiser. But Anyway, it's been a good summer, and we're heading up to Michigan next week to visit two of our three kids and other relatives as well.
What was your take on the Stanley Cup final? Because I know you're all things hockey. What was your take on the final?
Well, first of all, I was very, very happy for a couple of different people for various reasons. I was happy for a guy like Peter Laviolette, whose Rangers went a long way to beating my former team. And then I was very happy for Paul Maurice to have the cup win, because he and I go all the way back to the days when just after you left our organization as an assistant coach and coach, when he took over when Jim Rutherford came on the scene with Peter Karmanos. And he was a terrific guy at the time. I still don't believe he's only in his 50s, but I've noticed a big change in him, and I was very happy. I continued to communicate with him all through the playoffs, visited with him twice when they came to Raleigh to play the Hurricanes, and I was very, very happy for him. And I'll never forget, when he talked, I think it was to the Canadian media when they were interviewing him, and he gave a tribute out to his father. He says, "This one's for you, Dad. And I know how close you were with your father, Pierre.
Yeah.
And mine actually was the reason I started following hockey back in Detroit." And so I was very touched to see that he says, your name, Dad, is going to be on there with your idols, Howe and Beliveau and Richard.
We're visiting with Chuck Kaiton, the Hall of Fame voice of what used to be the Hartford Whalers and the Carolina Hurricanes, and not just a Stanley Cup winner, but a Hall of Famer, as I said. And one of the things I love about Chuck, he's an amazing storyteller. Chuck, you just brought up the great Gordie Howe, the late, great Gordie Howe. You were friendly with Gordie. Do you have any crazy stories about Mr. Hockey?
Well, the craziest one was my first year, really. There were a couple of things. Back in those days, when he was at training camp at the age of 51, when I came on the scene, I was very, very nervous to meet him for the first time at the Bolton Ice Palace, where we had training camp. And he was one of the first people I wanted to meet, he along with Dave Keon, who was with our team at the time. And of course, Gordie didn't know who I was when I first came in. And when I introduced myself to him as a longtime fan of his that grew up watching him at the old Olympia in Detroit, he says, okay, he put his hand out, and instead he brought the elbow over and caught me right in the face. And he said, "Welcome to the Whalers." So that was one. And then in that same year, in preseason, my late, great boss, Bill Barnes, our first broadcast was against the Pittsburgh Penguins, a preseason game at the Springfield Civic Center. And we were in the process of talking to different people about doing color. But on that first broadcast, Mr. Barnes said, "How would you like Gordie Howe to be your color man for the first broadcast?" Because he didn't play in that game. And so I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So when he sat down and did the game, and it got a little physical out there, we had two stick mics. And of course, my engineer was trying to control both mics at once, but a couple of expletives came over the air, courtesy of Mr. Hockey, when he didn't like the way a guy like Ray Neufeld was being run in the corner by somebody from the Penguins. And so he was still involved as a player, I guess, even as a color man. And of course, he played that last season and scored 15 goals. But I think the biggest story for me with respect to his career, and we kind of like intertwined and became extremely good friends because of that Detroit connection, I think. And getting to know Mark as I did, and Marty, and the whole family, I felt like I really felt like one of the family. And it particularly hurt me, of course, when he passed away. But I was honored enough to be one of the pallbearers that took him out of Joe Louis Arena that day, and taking him through the hearse and to the funeral home. And that was one of the saddest days of my life. But what a good person he was. I mean, obviously there are many stories I can tell about him, but those were the best to me. The way my wife Mary would make him an apple pie every time we'd come to Detroit. When I would stay and visit with my mom, she would take the time to make him a pie. He loved that, because after he had lost his wife, Colleen. So we had a lot of great times together. And I still have to pinch myself because getting to know him and people like Dave Keon and, all of the great stars that I watched as a kid and be able to rub elbows with them and talk hockey with them was really an honor.
I have a good Gordie Howe story for you. I'm
Okay.
doing the San Jose St. Louis playoff series, and Mark Howe is scouting the series for the Detroit Red Wings. So I'm sitting at dinner with Mark at the grill in San Jose at the old Fairmont Hotel, and I know you and I have been in there before. And so I said, Mark, what's like one of the craziest stories about your father? He says, well, I remember once Marty and I were young. We were playing in Houston in the WHA, and there was a guy who came up and he kept running Marty all the time. And he called his father Gordie. He said, Gordie went up to him and said, I wouldn't do that again if I were you. And I could just see Mr. Howe saying that, I could just see him like, I wouldn't do that again if I were you. And all of a sudden the guy hit Marty again. So Gordie skates right up to him, doesn't talk to him, doesn't say anything, just elbows him, knocks him out cold. Mark told me, he said, just knocked him out cold. Guy was never seen up again. He never went for Houston again. But that just showed he could flip the switch, Chuck. He could just flip it. It was amazing because he was one of the most nice humans you could ever talk to anywhere else, except for maybe on an ice surface.
Yeah, absolutely true. And then there's a couple of other guys that you and I know very well, Phil Esposito, Bobby Orr, who both told stories about when they played their first game against the Red Wings back in those days and how he initiated them with a little elbow. And Phil tells a great story about it, but I never even thought he would touch Bobby Orr. But Bobby said the same thing. I mean, he went into the corner once with him and up came the elbows there. And, you speak of that story. How about it happening in a charity game in Enfield, Connecticut? That same thing happened when they were playing a bunch of ragtag police and firemen in a charity game, Gordie dresses. It's supposed to be not physical, but somebody took another run and a hack at Marty. And without any prompting, Gordie came right over and gave him a two-hander behind the leg and said, that's enough of that stuff. So he did it even in a charity game that we actually telecast that day. Well, way back in like 1985 or 86, if I recall.
I know how much hockey you watch. We're the same. Just totally being transparent. Chuck and I share a lot of notes over the course of the year. What are you most impressed by the National Hockey League style of play right now, Chuck? Is there something that stands out for you?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, Pierre, and this is kind of an antithesis of the way I always viewed the game and from a skill level, but I can't believe the speed that these guys play at and the passing skills. And I know a lot of people talk about, a lot of people don't like the way they just dump the puck in and then dump the puck out. But there is some playmaking, there is some skill with the puck, and I can't believe the speed to me. Can it get any faster? I don't know, but I think that's the thing I'm most impressed with. And this is coming from a guy, an old schooler who's in his early 70s, who would love to see, and I know it'll never happen again because it would slow the game down a bit and really be a transition, put the red line back into the game. Yeah. But that's never going to happen. So I'm accepting the way it is. And I think that's the thing that's most impressive to me is the speed of the game, the way these guys can fly and still pass the puck so well and make plays at the high speeds they go at. That's the most impressive thing to me right now today's game.
I want to say maybe 12 days ago, I was visiting with Mario Lemieux, and we were talking about different players. And two of the guys that he brought up were Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid. And the thing that blows him away about Austin Matthews is how quick the puck's on his stick and off his stick. He's really right. Mario's unbelievably impressed by that. But when he talks about McDavid, he goes, he's just at a level that I've never seen before in terms of being able to skate and stick handle and make plays. And he asked me, what's your take? And I said, I've only seen one other player make plays at that speed, and that'd be Nathan McKinnon.
Right.
I mean, you remember, because you called those games. I coached in those games against those great Red Wing teams with Yzerman and Fedorov and Larionov, and they were really good, Chuck. And Fedorov was the best skater on that team. You would agree.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't doing it like this guy's doing it, or like McKinnon's doing it. I don't think.
No, again, when you see those legs pumping the way both those guys, I mean, it's a great analogy to compare McKinnon with McDavid. And it's just amazing. You're right. I mean, just the skating, the turning, the speed, the change of speed that these guys and possessing the puck the way they do at those speeds, they're at a different level. I mean, and this is, I guess, what I'm talking about, because going back about 50 years ago, we were talking about Bobby Orr, the way he controlled the game from the defense and the way he could skate, or other players that we've seen who were good skaters, but not explosive. You know, you look at like a Guy Lafleur or something with his, hair flying through, and he picks the puck up behind the net, goes all the way down the ice. But that was still at a different speed. And again, that was because the red line was there and you couldn't do it any differently. So I think these guys are now a product of having that more wide open play. But boy, their individual skills are incredible. I don't think I've ever seen two players like McKinnon and McDavid ever. And you never know, like, are there going to be kids that are 12, 13, 14 years old now that are going to be on that level? Can it get can there be more players coming in like that? But those are two special players that are just at a different level when it comes to how they handle the puck and the speed and the agility they play with. And they can shoot the puck, and they can do a lot of different things to make the defending team look silly.
Can you believe how good Sidney Crosby still is, Chuck?
I can believe it because I know how dedicated he is. He reminds me of a mini Gordie Howe. Everything about him, his face even kind of looks like a young Gordie Howe, and the way he talks and the way he represents the game. He is actually my favorite player right now on the roster, just from a character standpoint. And I don't even know him at all, but I know a lot of people who do, who have interacted with him, starting with you, basically, and what these people have told me he's like, and then what I've seen from him afar, when he came into the league in that 05-06 season, it's just amazing that he still has it. I mean, he could probably, I venture to say, the way he plays the game, I think he could play another 4, 5, 6 years. A lot of people always make the comparison with him and Ovechkin, that they came in the league at the same time, basically, because we had that lockout in 04 when Ovechkin got drafted. So they both came in at the same time. And but you can see Ovi's a different player. I mean, he can't skate and turn and do the things with that low center of gravity that Crosby can. So no, I guess I'm not surprised, because he keeps himself in terrific shape, and he's just a tremendous character guy. And I really kind of feel sorry for the Penguins in a little bit of a way, or for him, because Pittsburgh's kind of taken this dip here, and now they are not the team they were when he first started with them. But of course, he had a couple of non-playoff years early in his career, but he's seen the best, and hopefully he will be around when they rebound.
I want to back your point up. Mario said Sid's got 5 really good years left in him. So,
well,
Mario's agreeing with you. That's pretty good company for you.
I wouldn't disagree with Mario at all. I think he knows what he's talking about, and of course, he probably is he still collecting rent from Sid? Is Sid at home money for living?
Sidney's moved out. Moved out. Wasn't that a smart move? Think about it now, Chuck. When Mario turned pro with Pittsburgh, the family that he lived with was the Matthews. Their last name was Matthews. And Mario did very well there. I think nobody disagreed with that. When Sid turned pro, Mario said, look, he's got to have a place to live. Why wouldn't he live with me? You know, their property was big enough, and Mario could help guide him through the early part of his career. And you know what? I think he did.
Yeah. The only time, and you know what? I'm going back to pre-Pierre McGuire days with the Whalers, and we used to do that as well in the early 80s. It actually started by accident, because it was Greg Millen who took Ron Francis in originally. Yep. When Ronnie came up in November of 81, Millen actually took him in he and Annie took Ronnie in to live with them. And then after that, it kind of woke the organization up a little bit to saying, you know, when we got these first round pick, these 18-year-old kids, we want them to build it with another family. So there was a gentleman, and I can't recall his name now, unfortunately, who ran Connecticut Power and Light in West Hartford. And he took in a number of years, he was a big Whaler fan, and he took in people like Sylvain Cote, Sylvain Turgeon, you go down the list, Paul Lawless, all of these kids that came in as 18-year-olds and took them in about a 5 or 6 year period there where this same family in West Hartford took our kids in that made the team as 18-year-olds and guided them. And it was a great thing for the team to be a part of and to foster, let's put it that way.
Speaking of fostering, how about the Hartford Whaler alumni connection to coaching in the National Hockey League or the American Hockey League? You know, you think about Joel Quenneville, you think about Dean Evison, you think about Kevin Dineen, you think about Randy Ladouceur, you think about Randy Cunneyworth. Start looking at all the guys that are former Whalers.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Coaching in the NHL, it's unbelievable.
It is. I mean, Davey Tippett, there's just so many guys. And it's funny you mentioned it because I was so happy when Don Waddell got the job in Columbus. We were always wondering who was going to get the coaching job for the Blue Jackets. And never did I dream that Dean Evison would get it. I knew Dean Evison was a heck of a coach. I don't know what happened in Minnesota. He had a good winning record, but Billy Guerin decided to make a change. So when Dean got that job in Columbus, I was one of the first people to give him a call, and I said, "Hey, it's great to see you, and when you come to Raleigh," because the last time I had seen him was with the Minnesota Wild a couple of years ago when I came and visited my good friend Tom Reed, and we had a couple of hops, along with Lou Nanny, who flew in from Florida. We had a scene there at the hotel, and I saw Dino there and Billy Guerin at the time, who I knew real well. But I'm happy for him. But again, I don't know what's the connect. I saw Joel Quenneville this summer at Whalers Weekend about a month and a half ago, and he's ready to come back. And it's good to see that he's been reinstated and able to probably get offered the first coaching opening that occurs in 2024.
Oh, I would say you're probably right about that. Stan Bowman's already back with the Edmonton Oilers as general manager. I got to think Joel will be right at the front of the queue. No pun intended when it comes to coaches in the National Hockey League. Chuck, what is there anything that disappoints you or you think the league's missing right now that could really make the game a little better?
Well, it's hard to put into words, but just the fact that we're seeing, and I don't know, I think media coverage is bothering me a little bit from both a radio and television standpoint, both on the local level and on the national level. I think it's very difficult. And I know you were part of, I thought, an excellent broadcast team with NBC, with Doc and Eddie and yourself. And I don't think we've kind of reached that level once. I mean, I think there's still, and it's not about the talent guys as much as it is the accessibility to our game. I mean, it's nice to have the ESPN Plus package, which I do have to watch a lot of games, but I don't think a lot of people take advantage of that. I think that, our national television footprint has, if nothing else, has taken, I think, a bit of a back seat from the way it was before. So that's one of the misgivings. And then the fact, and I'm not just saying this because I couldn't come to an agreement with our new owners 6 years ago, but I don't like the fact that we are not cultivating good radio broadcasters because more teams now are deciding to simulcast. And it's scaring a lot of guys that are still in the league right now. I think that, in polling a lot of places, it used to be just Dallas and Buffalo that simulcast things and games, but now it's the LA Kings, the Hurricanes, and I think there will be a growing list because the economics of regional telecasts, as we all know, with the Bally bankruptcy situation. How's that going to be resolved? I mean, I think from a regional, right now, they seem to be putting a Band-Aid on that. And I'm wondering what the future is going to be, because this is supposedly only a one-year commit. I don't know where they're getting the money, but I know a lot of the teams that are still with Bally, the 9 teams that are left, are wondering the same thing. So that's the thing I kind of worry about. I don't worry about the on-ice product. I worry about the promotion of the game and the people who are trying to promote it, because a lot of my good friends are leaving. My good friend Sammy Rosen's going to retire at the end of the year. What an ambassador he's been for the Rangers. We lost Rick Jenneret a couple of years ago. We lost Bob Miller, Mike Lang. I mean, all of these guys. We're going to lose John Kelly probably in 2 or 3 years from now in St. Louis. And I'm not seeing a lot of people kind of making their mark from even a talent standpoint, except for a couple of guys that I happen to like quite a bit, including John Walton, who right now is battling cancer right now, as you know, and my heart goes out to him. Guys like he that are in their late 40s, early 50s carry on. But I think, we still need a little bit more individuality in the talent level, as well as the accessibility level on both radio and television.
That's really well said. And one of the things about the radio part of it, Chuck, and I agree with you, my backstory. When I was a kid growing up in Montreal, I used to listen to Danny and Dick all the time. And my mom would come into the bedroom because I shared a room with my brother Regan, and she would whack us because we would have the transistor radio under the pillow. We would be listening to Danny and Dick coming from Chicago or coming from Detroit, and my mom, time to go to bed. But the radio broadcasts were so enlightening. They were so good. There was so much information. And I do think we've gotten away from that. You know what? Before I got on TV, I did radio in Montreal, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
I had so much fun doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you were in a very special situation. Once you did make the move to television as an analyst, you were able to really show your knowledge and background on players, which I always loved. And I think the viewers loved it too. But on radio, you can do the same thing. And the creativity of a play-by-play guy on radio is unmatched on television, because you don't have to paint that much of a picture. And that's why I kind of admire Kenny Albert, because he can make that transition to do television as well as he does. But if you ask him, and I'm sure you've worked with him, his favorite thing to do is Rangers radio. And I don't know if he'll continue to do that with all the things he does. But, with Sam leaving, he's probably the heir apparent to do their television next year with the Rangers. So, but that creativity level is what I always loved about it. And that's what I always looked for in young broadcasters. And, we're kind of losing that. It kind of gets lost in the wayside. But I do think it's very interesting that TV now is having the same economic struggles because of streaming and different ways of getting games. But I don't know if that's even better, because are the younger people actually going to watch a hockey game on their phone or on a computer screen? I don't know. I kind of worry about that. Maybe wrongly so, but I do.
No, I worry about it too. I have to tell you, and before I let you go, I've never told you this. One of the best Saturday afternoons I ever spent in the National Hockey League, and I was in the league for 34 years. One of the best Saturday afternoons I ever spent, you were kind enough to allow me to broadcast a game with you in Pittsburgh versus Carolina. And I did the game with you on the radio.
Yep.
And I had so much fun. I left the rink because I had to work the next day with Doc and Eddie.
Yep.
But I had so much fun walking out of the rink, having done that game with you. And you're, I don't know the best way to describe it, but it brought me back to Danny and Dick. It truly did.
I appreciate that, because I never realized how much fun I would have working not only with you, but with the other guys that I've worked with over time. But I appreciate that game that you're talking about, because it was kind of one of the bucket list things I've always wanted to do, Pierre, is I was always wanted to work with you on a consistent basis somewhere because of your knowledge. And, I don't think this is a mutual admiration society thing. I truly mean that you, I think, are the best at what you did. as an analyst in the National Hockey League. And I know a lot of people look up to you, including my good friend Trip Tracy with the Hurricanes. And he's developed into one of the best analysts over time. He's been around 25 years himself now. And then there's a lot of guys that think that same thing about you. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it's always great when you work with somebody who appreciates the history of the game as you did. And that's what made it fun for me that particular day.
No shortcuts. So I just want to share one thing. Chuck and I used to go to the airport together. We used to hang around in the off season together. We used to go out for dinner a lot on the road. Was there any night better than our night in LA when we went to the Palm restaurant for dinner and we crashed the party with all those Hollywood celebs?
Yeah, there was a charity event going on there on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I didn't know what we were getting into. And I saw a bunch of people bidding on items or whatever. And then we went over to our table, and that was a fascinating evening, and it was great. And it's hard to believe that was we're going back now about 32 years ago.
It was 32
when that
years.
happened. Because, think about that. That's 92, 93 or 93, 94. I can't remember if it was your assistant coaching year.
It's 93, 94.
Yeah, it was your coaching year. So there we go. And so that's exactly, 31 years ago now. So, yeah, it was great. And, I don't know. I miss those times. But and that's what I miss about not being around the league is the people like yourself, people like the people that I've mentioned before. That are my colleagues, and I'll just stick around a little while. I'll still be the president of the NHL Broadcasters Association, so we'll still keep a hand on that.
So I have one quick one for you because I want you to do this for our listening audience. When we used to be with Hartford, we used to try to go to Quebec a day early. I'd try to practice at the Colisée, and then we'd go out for a nice dinner, usually at the Continental, but sometimes we go other places. I want you to order breakfast at the Hippodrome in Quebec for our audience. I want you to order breakfast in French like you used to do.
Yeah, we used to go to that. Remember, it was the Piste de Course, which was it was right next to the Colisée. That was where they did harness racing.
Correct.
And they had some of the best breakfasts you could have. So I learned to say, je voulons 2 œufs, tournée avec jambon et café noir et rôti brun.
That means he wanted 2 eggs turned over with ham and black coffee. And what was the last part you said?
And rôti brun, which was wheat toast.
Potatoes, and toast. Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
Charlie, I'm so proud of you. That was good French.
Well, I've got to learn it too. Okay, I'll give you a quick plug because Pierre Houd of RDS is going to be our Hall of Fame honoree in November, and I have something special for him. I am going to try to be bilingual myself, so I could be like the late great Claude Mouton, the old PA announcer of the Montreal Forum, who was just a terrific guy.
He and Michel Lacroix, who took his job, are the 2 best PA announcers. Maybe Paul Morris in Toronto, maybe. Right, yeah. But, I would say that those 2 guys, because they had to do it bilingually, unbelievable how talented Claude Mouton was and how talented Michel Lacroix still is.
Yes, he is.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean that's the voice of the building. It's like in the catacombs of the Bell Center. That's the voice. I mean, you hear it. It's great. And what if you played for the Leafs? It would have been back in those days. Toronto goal scored by number 13 McGuire. Assist number 14 Keon and number 27 Sittler. The time 2:25.
Unbelievable. Chuck has it nailed. It's so good. I can't thank you enough for your time. I can't wait to see you. I'm going to see you before Hall of Fame weekend. I know that. And we have to get you fixed on the golf course. I'll come and help you.
Thank you. Well, you'll have to do mirror image because, as everybody knows, I'm left-handed. So if you can help a left-hander, I would appreciate that supremely.
So one time Chuck played golf with me up at my home course in Quebec, and I think he lost 14 balls in 12 holes or something.
So, yeah, well, yeah. Why don't you have rough? I mean, it's all what do they call it? Not gorse, but that high brush. Yeah, I used to have a bad shank back in those days. It's not as bad now, so hopefully I won't lose 12 the next time I see you.
You are an amazing friend. You're an awesome professional. You're a true Hall of Famer. You're a Stanley Cup champion, and you are a special friend. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you very much, Pierre. Right back at you. You're a good man.
Say hello to Kitty for me. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Pierre.
Take care.
Mhm.
That's a great Chuck Kaiton. You talk about a man that's got a mind like a steel trap. That's him, professional broadcaster. It's crazy. I don't get it. He should be broadcasting in the National Hockey League. I know he had a contract dispute with the owner, the new owner at the time of the Carolina Hurricanes, but their shows have never been the same without Chuck. And I mean, no disrespect to anybody working there, but Chuck Kaiton should be at the top of the list for every team that wants to hire a play-by-play guy that actually knows what they're doing, and he would sell. He would sell big time because of how talented he is. Shane, let's go to some more questions. I don't want to leave anybody in the lurch before we have to check out. Max R., what are some technical details to look for that differentiate the best goalies from the pack? Well, I would say skating. I would say edge control. I would say playing big. I would say being able to handle the puck. And I would say being able to fight through screens. One of the most difficult things in the league right now is because of the way teams attack the net and jam the net, you got to find a way to see through people and battle through screens. So those are just some of the things that I would utilize as an evaluator of talent to change or evaluate somebody that I think could be better or may not be as good. Next. GB, what would you say the differences are with the NCAA and the QHL leagues besides games played? Well, I'd say one of the biggest things is U.S. college hockey guys are older. Guys are bigger. They're more physically mature, and they're probably faster. I'd say major junior hockey, the top guys are really slick with the puck. They're really, really slick, probably slicker than most college players. They don't do everything at the high pace or the faster pace. Yeah, I know you're going to say, what about McDavid? What about Crosby? What about McKinnon? There are lots of other players besides them. So my point is that college hockey is just more of a mature game, and that's why you're seeing more and more older players stepping in and playing at the pro level coming out of college because they're just more ready to play physically. Thank you for that question. Next, Randy. I think the Knights made a mistake from trading Thompson to the Caps. Wondering if you thought it was a mistake. It could very well be. It could very well be. I'm going to be interested to watch Vegas this year, Randy. I said it at the time, at the top of the show. I think they're one of the teams that could go really good, really, really good, or they could fall back. And if they fall back, they're not overly stocked with draft picks because they've really always swung for the fence. Every single year they've been in the league, they swung for the fence, and usually they're pretty close to getting the ball over the fence. So I would say this will be an interesting year to watch them. For Washington, they still have to get under the cap, but they've done some really good things in the offseason trying to tinker with their roster to make themselves even more competitive than what they were last year. And Spencer Carberry, the coach in Washington, deserves a lot of credit. Did a lot of really good things last year with that group. Next. Marco, do you expect goals to be up again this season or level out? Bring back the 8. I don't know what that means. I apologize, boys. I don't know what that means, but I think the offense will actually go up this year. I think the offense will go up. San Jose is going to have better offensive numbers than what they had last year. Anaheim is going to have better offensive numbers than they had last year. I think Philadelphia could have better offensive numbers than what they had last year. Montreal will have better offensive numbers than what they had last year. Ottawa, even though they got to 200, I think 250, 252 last year, goals for Ottawa will be better offensively. So I do think the goal scoring numbers will go up from last year to this year. Next. Jeremy, thanks for the second question. Does Devin Levi play a majority of his games in the NHL this year? It's going to be, I think that's going to be a tough battle with Ukko-Pekka Laukkanen and him. But I would say that if they make it a fair fight, it's probably going to be a 1A, 1B. I just don't know who the 1A is going to be. But I think Buffalo, if they get some goaltending and a little bit more offense, and not just from Tage Thompson, they're going to have to find other sources to give them offense. Maybe it's Casey Middlestar, or Casey's already been traded. Sorry about that. Maybe it's from the back end. Bowen Byram helps them out there with some more puck movement, but they're going to have to be better offensively besides just Tage Thompson. Steve Fowler, any news on Luke Tuck? He wasn't at the July Prospects tourney. Last I heard of him was when he played a few games in Laval and did pretty well. He's a signed player, so maybe the team didn't ask him to actually go to that development camp this summer. I know that Montreal went with a very young training camp this summer. One of the players that was there, Matthew Biotti, is a kid that I trained in the summer in Boston. He's actually going into his second year in Penticton, British Columbia. He's a 2004 born player, so 20 years of age. So they had a very young camp in Montreal. So I'm going to bet that they didn't ask Luke Tuck to be there. And I think Luke will go in and have a very good year. I do think he'll play in Laval the entire year. I don't think he'll get a call early on in the NHL. But if there are enough injuries, maybe he gets an opportunity. The Luke Tuck that I know is hard on the boards, is really hard on the forecheck, can get to the front of the net, and can give you some offense. I loved working with him when he was a younger player. I really enjoyed watching him play. Was an older player. I think his brothers turned out to be a dynamic offensive player in the NHL, especially now for Buffalo. So Alex Tuck, by the way, is his name. So I think Luke will be fine, but I think he'll spend most of his time in the AHL, Steve. Next, Shane. Well, it looks like that's all we have for tonight. I want to thank the great Chuck Kaiton for coming on. I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners and the people that make this show go. Thank you so much. Shane, our producer back in Montreal, thank you so much for everything you do. Can't wait to have Jimmy Murphy back tomorrow. Jimmy, we got you covered here today. The show's never as good as when you're with us, so look forward to having you back tomorrow. And next week, again, just pass the word. We're going to start breaking down all the teams heading into the NHL season, and we're going to break down each and every one of the 32 teams when next Monday begins. So we're going to take one team per day and get it going from there. You've been listening to the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Talk to you tomorrow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.